Most of these movies, halfway through, I think, God, I bet this would smell so bad.
They can't find any bleach wipes. Nobody can.
Nobody can!
It's less I'm trying to make a point than open up a conversation. I think sometimes those are the kind of the funnest horror experience.
I don't know why that is so creepy, but it is.
Well, things are just going so well around home, we thought we would go back to the happy-go-lucky dark ages for the latest Fright Club with a very special guest that we're very excited about. So welcome. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club podcast talking about our favorite dark ages horror. We've got not only a special guest, we've got Fuzzy Math. And first off, we want to say thanks again to Gordon Maples, who joined us last time as we talked about college campus horror. That was fun. And he actually does a full Ivy on Celluloid blog. That's his latest on his site, Misanthropy. Did I pronounce it right?
I believe you did. And it's interesting because the latest blog that he does is on Happy Death Day, which is not one of the ones that made our list, but it was one of the ones that kind of talked about tangentially. Yeah. So it was more kind of a follow-up to the whole podcast.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. And Gordon, thank you so much. And we recently did a throwback to one of our old Fright Club episodes. And I feel like sometimes where you hear these longtime musicians, they go back and visit some of their early songs and they wince a little bit, you know? It wasn't the subject matter, but we were still finding our feet.
Not quite as polished.
Yeah, not quite as polished. I think it was episode 57 maybe,
yeah, it was pretty
something
early.
like that. It was the best black characters in horror movies. It's an old show, so it's missing a lot of great characters from the last 5 years or so. So have mercy, but we appreciate you if you check it out.
One of the things I really noticed in going back to that one was how many great women we've seen since that came out.
Mm-hmm.
So Lupita Nyong'o, who played two in one movie, right? Both in Us. But then also she did Little Monsters, which was great. And, of course, Betty Gabriel, but she was also in the Purge films.
Purge films, yeah. And so great in Get Out.
Yeah, so there's tons of them.
Well, you know what that means? It just means we have to do another edition.
Yeah, we do.
Definitely
We really do. One of the things, though, that Paul and Monty separately noticed was that in the original list, we have no excuse. We forgot Keith David from The Thing.
Childs from The Thing. And we just have to do a mea culpa there because, that is a mistake.
Yeah. Also, it's funny.
We were young. We were young and dumb.
We have mentioned The Thing in 300 different podcasts. I can't believe we forgot. And we love him.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and Omar pointed it out, and I think he pointed it out the first time we aired this podcast, is that he's kind of miffed that Wesley Snipes in Blade didn't make the list.
Yeah. He is a badass.
He is. And I think at the time I was saying that it wasn't really horror, but it's a vampire movie.
Right.
The second one, there's a lot of carnage. So I think maybe in a Fuzzy Math universe, probably it should have counted.
We got to give Wesley and Blade and Omar some props for that. So thank you. Some great feedback as always on the old and has a lot of holes in it podcast, but only on our end. The content, the movies we're talking about, fantastic. But I think that's a subject that we should revisit, especially because of what you talk about, all that we've seen in the last few years.
Here's what I think. Maybe we'll try to wait for the new Candyman, and then we can revisit it.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
I like that. So thanks for all the feedback, as always. And we also have a new poll, don't we? For the next event, next subject?
Yeah, we do. So we put together a poll for the next Fright Club Live. It was neck and neck for a while between eyeballs and cinematography. And part of the reason I think is because Nathan accidentally chose eyeballs, and he didn't mean to. So he right away tweeted loudly in all caps, "I didn't mean to choose eyeballs."
No takebacks.
That's right.
You're in.
That's right. But cinematography wins. So our next Fright Club Live, we're going to talk about the best cinematography in horror.
Yeah, the next Fright Club Live is coming up this Wednesday, and we're not quite back in front of the live audience at Gateway Film Center. I think that's coming soon.
Yes, hopefully July, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, so it's going to be this Wednesday. It's going to be live on Vimeo and the Gateway Film Center Facebook page. We'll give you all the info on that here toward the end of the podcast. All right, we're going back to the Dark Ages. How'd this come about? Was this a result of our special guest?
It was, because filmmaker George Popov is joining us today, and he has two films. He has a new film out right now that you should be definitely watching called The Droving, and he has a film from 2017 that we're very, very big fans of called Hex. So we wanted to, direct your attention to both of those movies, and I thought that we had done some topics that related very closely to the droving. The droving would have fit well into a couple of other podcasts that we've done in the last few years, but we'd never done one on Dark Ages, and a little bit of fuzzy math. Mainly, we're focused on films that are set in the 15th century. Mainly. Don't hold me accountable to that if we decide something else gets stuck in here. So thematically, I'm telling you, we're the judges, and therefore it is accurate.
Nice.
But we want to talk about, specifically for the countdown, we're going to talk about Hex, but I definitely want to talk about the droving as well. And just as a piece of interest, I think, right now, at this minute, on our website, 2 of the 5 articles that have the most traffic belong to George Popov, actually. So it's the reviews of the droving and of Hex. They are in the 5 most trafficked posts on our site right now.
That is awesome. Well, let's bring in our special guest and ask him how much of that traffic is responsible for your family.
Oh, hello, guys. It's great to be here. No. I mean, I don't have that big of a family, so I don't think it's all of them. But, yeah, definitely.
Well, we are really, really honored that you took the time to join us. This is going to be good because, like Hope said, we're big fans of both of these movies that we're going to talk about. One in the countdown and one that's out now. And
thank you very much.
It's really our pleasure. And it was exciting for us to find out that you didn't want to just talk about your movies. You're here as a fan as well.
Oh yeah. No, I'd love to talk about the other ones, if not more so. So it's a great selection. It's very eclectic. I love that. We have a little bit of everything. So I'm very excited about this.
We do. Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to get to it? You do have some with each movie. You do have some sort of in a subcategory underneath, right? That kind of go along with each one.
Yes. Yeah. So there are so many movies in this sort of area that talk about religion, witches, and organized religion and the folklore at the time and how they kind of collide in really ugly, often very loud, very, very dirty ways, like just filthy. Most of these movies, halfway through, I think, God, I bet this would smell so bad.
They can't find any bleach wipes. Nobody can.
Nobody can! So, yeah, there are a couple of other also-rans that I just want to kind of toss around as we talk about some of these movies.
All right, cool. Well, let's get at it, and we do have fuzzy math, so we have number 6 to start at, and this one is from 2010, and it's set during the time of the first outbreak of bubonic plague in England. A young monk is given the task of learning the truth about reports of people being brought back to life in a small village. It's Black Death.
Word has reached the bishop of a village that does not suffer as the rest. I must see for myself how this village is kept safe.
This village we're headed to, they have cast God aside. In this place sits a demon.
There is no God. Demons and necromancers are among us. As you will find out soon enough. I am death. Vengeance is mine. God's fury rains down on you!
Well, this one stars Sean Bean, and he was really the reason. Apparently, this movie was shot in chronological order because he was only available for about 5 weeks, so he had to get in and get out. But his star power was one of the big reasons this movie was able to raise the funds that it did. So he was in quickly, but had a lot of pull in getting this done.
It's an interesting, too. It's a change of pace. Christopher Smith, who we love from Severance. So the filmmaker who made Severance, which was, in fact, our first Fright Club Live. That's a first film that we showed in Fright Club Live. Quite a change of pace for him.
Yeah, it is.
With this movie. And then the other thing that's interesting about that, what you just said, is that Eddie Redmayne is the other lead in the film, is really actually the lead in the film. And, of course, at the time, he wasn't such a much. People didn't know who Eddie Redmayne was. And, of course, he was going to go on to become just a consistent Oscar contender. And in this one, it's really his character who has the greatest arc. He starts off as kind of an innocent, but somebody who's very devoted to his religion in terms of sort of goodness, as opposed to those around him who are devoted to it in more of a dogmatic kind of a way. And the movie, what it does really well, I think, it looks at, there are a lot of films that look at the plague and Christian soldiers and witch hunting and sort of smash it all together. But very few of them are as sympathetic to the Christian soldiers as this one is. Sympathetic might be the wrong word, but, it's not Witchfinder General, which I love, actually. I love that movie. But I really like the way, I feel like this film is better able to depict the clashing ideology and where evil really lies than some of the other films that do the same thing. Plague, Christian soldiers, witches, or in another one I saw actually just last year was called The Golem, which is not a great movie, but it's a very similar construct. Christian soldiers come to a Jewish community because the Jewish community is the only one that has so far been untouched by the plague. And they assume, the Christian soldiers assume that it's because of magic, some sort of, sorcery that this religious community, and it is a religious community in a sort of a way in Black Death as well. So they hold them hostage until they can cure somebody beloved by one of the Christian soldiers. So it's got a very similar construct to that, but I just feel like Black Death, it's very serious. It takes it all very seriously and creates a creepy, effective mood.
No, absolutely. I think Hop is spot on the case that it's one of those few films that absolutely try to also portray the Christian side a little bit more complex, than usually goes. Is just the kind of the super pious bad guys. I think everybody's a bad guy in this film in a way. I think Black Death really really well shows that both sides are able to go to extremes, and they have their pros and cons. And absolutely, Sean Bean and Eddie Redmayne really do carry the film quite a lot. But the performances throughout are exceptional. And you have if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you have your red lady. Blonde in this one, but yet again she pulls a great performance in this one. And I had to watch it maybe twice until I fully understood how well it actually builds that dichotomy between the two sides. The first time around I thought it was pulling in too many directions, but when I watched it the second time around, it does have a great atmosphere. It does take it very seriously, and I think it definitely by the end you keep thinking about where would I lie in this situation, what kind of route would I take. And I can definitely understand some of the stances even the villains, so you can, if you can call them that way in the film, can take. I think Black Death just gets better every time you watch it.
It's interesting to me what you point out about the characters who are, in a way, kind of all bad guys, but sort of are not, and really complicated characters. And I think that is true of both of your films. You're never quite sure, especially in The Droving, but in both of them, where each character sort of is on that spectrum of good versus evil is a little bit muddied for a long time. And I think it helps you, the viewer, sort of take the journey with them toward wherever they're going at the end. You're compelled the whole time to sort of figure out, where is this guy now and where is he going to end up at the end? And so I'm curious, is that something that you do intentionally, or is it just something that comes naturally to you as you're building a character?
I think so. I think I'm a firm believer that it's a very rare occasion to have purely a good person or a bad person. I think we all can do good deeds or bad deeds, and I think that's something that I find definitely interesting with characters in my films, but also appreciate in something like Black Death, where you can see that as I said, they're all bad guys. They're not. They're all just human beings that they can very easily get swayed into or make a wrong decision or take horrible acts because they believe it's the best thing. And I think that's something that I can say about all my characters as well, that I empathize with them even when they're doing stuff that are absolutely horrible, because that happens all the time. It's part of our nature, and it's just fun to analyze. Sometimes it's scary to see what we find, but it's important to do.
Exactly. Black Death from 2010, number 6 on our list of Dark Ages horror. So moving up to number 5, this would be the classic on the list, I think. This one back to 1964. A European prince terrorizes the local peasantry while using his castle as a refuge against the Red Death plague that stalks the land. Vincent Price, Mask of the Red Death.
Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, pearls.
Lavishly he plants his corrupting seeds of sin, spreading living terror that not even the unsullied can escape. Nor can one who craves all the forbidden pleasures of the depraved.
Each man creates his own heaven, his own hell. Let me see your face.
It's always fun to have a Roger Corman movie in the list. It's
And a
always,
Vincent Price.
And a Vincent Price. And Poe, as much as Roger Corman actually made Poe, which he didn't really. But this movie is Vincent Price at his just campy best. It's also got Hazel Court in it, who I love, and of course has done so many Hammer films, and she's magnificent in this movie. And you reminded me, I'd completely forgotten.
Jane Asher.
Yeah, Paul McCartney's ex.
Yeah, way back.
Actually, at that time, they were together at that time.
I think so.
And Roger Corman didn't know it and thought he was going to date her. And no, you're not. She's dating Paul McCartney.
I think this was actually named Roger Corman in interviews. He said this one, along with The Intruder and The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, as his personal favorites among his films. All his films.
Well, this is better than those other two. Those other two. Well, The Intruder's okay. Man, their X-ray eyes are not very good. But I love the way they use color in this movie. And that's the thing, is that to do justice to this particular Poe story, because every page is so color specific in that story, and they just do a fantastic job with the color. Is just glorious. It stands out in this movie. And again, I mean, I think this might be, it's in my top 3 anyway, favorite Vincent Price performances.
Oh yes, Mask of the Red Death, like absolutely fun. I think it's always good to see Corman care, because it doesn't happen very often, and I can definitely see why that's one of his favorites, if not his favorite, because he has a love of Poe that, most of the time it just turns into kind of exploitation of Poe. But I think this sort of story is a good one to become a Corman-esque version, because some of the other ones, like, he doesn't like to translate the depth that come often with those stories, or to take it in a bit more kind of ballsy, creepy way. But here I think it's become a perfect marriage of him caring and the story being able to carry it. If he has like any deficiencies, it probably is that it's becoming a little bit more obvious towards the middle of the film that this is just a short story, and they're trying to pad it out with some other elements, a subplot that comes from another Poe short story that Corman and the screenwriter decided to put in. I think it's Hoptoad, which is the little person subplot, which he has a very satisfying conclusion. But you can kind of tell that the two things don't have too much in common. But it is very fun, and you have to watch it until the end, because that's when it really comes through, and it has a great, almost Twilight Zone-esque. Obviously, Twilight Zone is more inspired by Poe than the other way around. But if you're a fan of both, it is fun. And yes, Vincent Price, oh boy, like he chews that old set.
He does.
Like it's nothing.
And this one, too, you mentioned the color. There are times here that I thought of the original Suspiria.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, because the colors are so hyper vivid. They're so overly saturated in a way that is completely unrealistic, and intentionally so. And I was trying to think today of any other Corman films that rely like that, the use of color is as inspired. And I really, honestly, I can't think of one. I think that it's just perfectly matches the story itself. And I agree with you. I think that the fact that it's a short story is good for Corman, because it doesn't dig deep into anything in particular. And I think you're right. I hadn't thought about that before, but that might be why this one works as well as it does, because it doesn't feel like he's giving it short shrift, because he can't. He actually has to pad it.
Yeah. Definitely.
As George said, all the way to the end. Got to go all the way to the end for sure. Mask of the Red Death from 1964. That's our number 5. And moving up to number 4 on our favorite Dark Ages horror, this is the first film from our guest, George Popov. This was 2017. During the English Civil War, 2 opposing soldiers find themselves trapped in a forest controlled by a witch, Hex.
Something ungodly lingers here. Found her way into your mind. Into your dreams, didn't she?
Hex. What can I say about it that I haven't already showed in the movie? But the only thing I can say that I think I'm allowed to is just to say like what my experience with the film has been like since then, which in a way I haven't rewatched it too many times, but when I have, I think the stuff that ages the best is what we're trying to do in terms of the theme and like where to take the story like after that. And I do think that what I said earlier about Black Death, I hope that applies the same way to Hex, that even when I watch it just as a just as a viewer, it does compel me to think about and stick with it even more and be like, oh, did I even say everything I meant to say? Like, I think there's a lot more to think and talk about, and it's a good conversation starter about humanity in some ways. It's less I'm trying to make a point than open up a conversation. But I think sometimes those are the kind of the funnest horror experience.
Well, since we're talking about Dark Ages, what are the challenges from a production design or lighting, sound design angle for a filmmaker to set a film in the Dark Ages?
Well, I think it's you have to know from the beginning what kind of style you're going for, obviously, as a director. So, we came up from an example of Mask of the Red Death, where it's a very, Hope, as you pointed out, the color, it's a very 60s movie, and they really embraced it. So you can do any style, I think. You can do a lot of different stuff, but you just have to embrace it wholly. With Hex, I think with the type of story I was doing, it was important to bring some authenticity in terms of lighting, and I really wanted to concentrate on atmosphere. I think all my films really try to put that on the forefront. I really wanted everybody to really just feel that forest and be kind of submerged into every single aspect of it. So I gave, it's the best light source that we have, which is the sun. And during the day, I really relied on that, and I really wanted to see all the different shades of green that you can see in that forest. And then at night, I've been a big fan of a black space in the frame. And I love how much, everything that you see that's coming out of the darkness, a very kind of, almost Rembrandt-esque or Caravaggio lighting where you have characters with torches and being submerged in the darkness of the night. I wanted to concentrate on that. So all the lighting, almost all of it is natural. It's either fire or sun or anything. And all the other lights that we used, all the film lights, I just try to be very careful and just simulate the same lighting. So yeah, and then the same thing just applies to art direction as well.
It was one of the things I think the use of natural light, as you're saying, is one of the things that seemed to me to give the movie a sense of authenticity, which I think can be really difficult when you are filming something that is supposed to have taken place such a long time ago, and reminiscent of like Hagazusa. It's like you just believe it. Oh, yep, that's where I am. I'm not in 2017 watching movie. I'm in this super creepy forest where anything could happen. And I thought that was really impressive. And then when I got the chance to see The Droving as well, you have such a tremendous instinct, I think, for visual storytelling, for letting the set itself tell a massive part of the story. And I think that is really uncommon in filmmakers, especially American filmmakers, who are very wedded to telling you with words what's happening and not paying enough attention to sort of the environment that the characters are in. Again, I'm curious, is that something that you set about doing, or is it just something that comes naturally?
Oh, well, thank you very much. I think it's because the visuals are yet another part of the atmosphere, and I really want people to feel like the every film that I make of its own has its own world, rather than it's just a representation of a world that just existed, or we're going to it's in 17th century England, and as I said, authenticity is important, but at the same time it isn't. It's still just a movie, and that world starts at minute 1 and it finishes at minute 90. And it's the same thing with The Droving. So to establish a more specific atmosphere, I'm just trying to use all the tools that I have in the toolbox, and it starts with visuals, and then it continues with sound and soundtrack and everything, and color correction, and everything that we can use, that I can do to submerge people in that atmosphere, and how much is that related to the characters and the story and what they're going through as well. I'm trying to mimic in certain way part of the internal struggles that they might be going through as well, and that can come through sometimes color or visuals. So yeah, it is important. I'm trying to think of all the different aspects, but I think sometimes my great visuals look even better if you have like the right sound.
Yes.
And I think something sounds better just because it looks really good. So I think it's so I cheat a little bit just by doing everything at the same time, and try to really push it forward in a way that by the end of a shot or a scene, you feel like you've been a special different place.
Let's take a detour then from the Dark Ages for a minute and talk more about your current film, The Droving, which we highly recommend, by the way. This one is set in more present day around a festival that we had not heard of before called the droving. So what is that exactly?
Well, thank you. I mean, like the droving is, I don't think too many people have heard about it like before our movie, and I'm really glad that we've kind of made a little bit of an advertisement for it. The actual festival, that's the real one, is called the Winter Droving. It takes place in Cumbria, which is in the Lake District in northern England. And it's a festival that, has its traditions in, back in the day where people used to carry to transport livestock through the town, and merchants will buy it and sell it. And because it's some sort of the harvest festival version with livestock, people celebrate for making a little bit of money and everything. And then later on, that in modern days, that has turned into something that people celebrate in a bit more creepy way by putting on masks and torches and, all that kind of stuff.
That's one of my favorite things in movies, by the way, people wearing animal masks. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, yes.
It's actually one of his favorite things in life as well.
Oh, brilliant. I'm not going to ask too many questions, but that's maybe you should join the clan that's in the film. Like they'll love. No, it is very fun, and I think me and Jonathan knew about this festival because like we've spent some time in that area just kind of when we were celebrating the release of Hex and everything, and we saw one of those festivals, and I thought at the time, with a very kind of simplistic idea of like, oh, it would be kind of cool if you set a thriller around this thing, it's kind of works, and then that turned into something way more important. We actually had something to say. And then we developed a whole kind of semi-made-up kind of folklore myth around the real Winter Droving Festival, and then we made it into something quite more sinister and dark, which is the Droving Festival in the world of our film. So it's inspired by real life. It's helped to come to life with the real one. But the world of this one is hopefully way more mysterious.
And when you say Jonathan, you mean Jonathan Russell, who has co-written both of your films with you.
Yes.
What I love visually, again, about this movie, so you've got all of the kind of natural wonder. You really explore that in the same way that you did in the first film, is that there's hiking trails and there's these creepy caves and there's all this really great stuff. But you also have these lovely discordant images of the street festival that's like off hours. And there's something just so creepy about seeing like a big Ferris wheel and all these other sort of children's rides in the dark when there's nobody there. There's nobody using them. I don't know why that is so creepy, but it is. And then this empty street and this man walking by himself. It's such a great image. The whole movie looks great, but it's the second time in both films your lead, Daniel Oldroyd, he does such a great job in both films of anchoring the movie in a way that is very serious. Like he's very serious, and he's quite sure in both films that he's got the moral high ground, but you as a viewer are not. And I think that would be a very difficult feat for an actor to be able to kind of do both of those things at the same time.
Definitely.
And I've not seen him in nearly enough other things. Where did you find him?
Well, it was through actually the other recurring favorite of mine, which is Susie Francis Garton,
Sure.
who plays the witch in Hex, and she's back in the Droving as well. And she knew Dan, and because when I was casting for a different project that we kind of ended up delaying and kind of postponing for a while. And initially when she suggested him, I wasn't sure about it. I was like, oh, this guy, I don't know. Sure, there's something about him. But I think by this point, like everybody was casting him in exactly kind of roles and bits that basically what he is, like a really nice guy, a very gentle soul and everything. And when it came around for Hex, and by this point, I kind of learned that he's a really great actor, and he was a great one to kind of like be friends with at that point. So I was thinking, well, I'm gonna do the opposite. I don't like to cast for what people see on the poster. I mean, like I'm one of those directors, and I'm sure some other directors do it that way, which is like I like to cast for where my character is gonna end up, not for who they are, what their mask is. And because both me and Jonathan really love those kind of multi-layered characters that have a lot of masks, and it turned out that they're quite convicted in something. It seems that like a lot of that is maybe rotten to its core. I want to see where that person's going to end up, that kind of, who is there. And I knew that with Hex, that Dan will be able to portray that of where Richard's going to end up being by the end. And then we kind of took that even further with the Droving. Now that I've worked with him a little bit, we played a little bit, we've danced together, and I knew that what we can do. So I was like, okay, let's push that even further. Even though when me and Jonathan were writing the Droving, we're not like writing with casting in mind, because I think sometimes that can be harmful towards you're putting artificial kind of barriers in front of you. So I wasn't necessarily thinking of Dan, but like when we finished it, I said, okay, this seems like a natural kind of progression from where we ended up with Hex. But we kind of looked at each other and went, this role is like unactable. This is really complicated.
It is.
Martin in the drawing is like really complicated. So yeah, he said yes without knowing what he's going to get himself into. But he did a stellar job, and
He did.
It was a wonderful experience.
Well, we highly recommend George's latest film, The Droving, and back to Hex, which was number 4. George's first film, number 4 on our list of Dark Ages horror. So let's move it up to number 3 from 1992. This is a man accidentally transported to 1300 AD, where he must battle an army of the dead and retrieve the Necronomicon so he can return home. Of course, it's Army of Darkness.
In an age of darkness
May God have mercy upon your souls. Something's wrong. Something's amiss.
and a time of evil,
You shall die!
when the world needed a hero,
The swallow us souls. I don't want to die!
what it got was him.
Groovy. You know your shoelace is untied.
He's a 20th century guy
For that arrogance, I shall see you dead.
trapped in the Middle Ages.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. This is my boomstick.
Now, let's talk about how I get back home.
Army of Darkness.
George is not a fan.
It's all right.
No. Give me some sugar, baby.
This George. My George is not a fan.
Oh, all right, sorry. I thought it was me. I was like, no.
I like it fine. I just don't like it nearly as much as Hope does.
No, and I think you do like it. I think you like Army of Darkness better than you like Sam Raimi's first 2 Evil Dead films.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, because it does still have that sort of Three Stooges-esque kind of comedy about it, but it's much broader. There's so many more really hilarious characters in it, and Bruce Campbell he got rid of the unibrow and he got super buff, and he is so hot in this movie. So that's why it's my favorite of the 3. But I think we had to do something silly for this at some point because all of the other movies are so incredibly very serious about what they're doing, and this of course is not. And it's really sort of what is a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court kind of a spin in what's happening here, and it just has so many iconic lines and it's just a really fun movie.
Well, what I love about this is when it was released in Japan, the title was Captain Supermarket.
Wow.
I love that.
Okay, that's very inventive. That's what it ends up being by the end. That's like the ending is. It pretty much he becomes Captain Supermarket.
He
by
does.
the end.
Yeah. Shop smart, shop S-smart. Am I right though? You'd not seen this film.
I saw it now. I saw it like yesterday.
Right,
so,
but prior to this.
So yeah, I have to apologize to all horror fans listening to this, thinking that I'm a complete idiot because I am. Like Sam Raimi's been always a big gap for me. Like I always knew that I'm gonna like his films, and that's why I keep like putting it off because it was such a cult thing. I'm like, oh, I know so much of it. I'm like seeing all of like, The Evil Dead by like other people's quotes and clips. And it's like, I don't want to get disappointed by actually watching it. But no, I watched Army of Darkness and I watched Evil Dead 2 in preparation for that. I do have to say I think, enjoy Evil Dead 2 a little bit more, maybe just as a first time watching both, just because like I thought it was really funny, but I thought it was a bit less silly.
Yeah, definitely.
My personal opinion. But oh boy, is it fun and is it quotable? Like absolutely.
Yes.
Like, I'm using half of those like lines already, and I haven't even seen it. So
you're welcome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So it is a groovy movie. What can I say?
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I mean, there are countless ways to look at this movie, and obviously to quote it, and Bruce Campbell. It's hard not to talk about him, but it's funny to me. This is one of M. Beth David's first films. She's gone on to be such an incredibly well-respected, and she's really not. She did the movie Hole, but other than that, she's really not done horror again. She doesn't do much comedy either. She's just a very respected character actor who's done a lot of dramatic movies with a lot of Oscar winners. And then and I always forget it's her. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. There she is. And she's hysterical in this movie. I mean, she's.
Oh, yes. What a fun role to play as well. Like doing that, like double. So she's so different. At the beginning, she just looks like the medieval extra. On set. And then after that, it just go full blown crazy. So
Army of Darkness. The classic. That's number 3 on our list of Dark Ages horror. And number 2, this is one from 2 years ago now. It's a medieval warrior's gruesome collection of heads, and it's missing only one, the monster that killed his daughter years ago. This is the Headhunter.
I always thought I could protect her. What took her from me is still out there. Don't touch her! Vengeance is upon us.
First thing that jumps out to me about this movie is how few words are in it. I mean, it's almost like, one page of dialogue or something in this whole movie. It's so visual.
This film, we got to see for the first time at Nightmares Film Festival. It won Best Cinematography, and for good reason.
Yeah.
It's just an astonishing film to watch because it takes you a minute, I think, to realize that you really do have to be paying attention to all the sounds you hear and all the stuff that's in this guy's house and what's up and what's going on. You know, none of it is sort of filler, even if early on, because you're kind of trained to expect a lot of dialogue, you might misperceive that it is filler. I think it's just a brilliant execution on this film. And it is a horror movie. When it gets gory, and there are monsters. It's a monster movie, and that's always fun because we don't get to see enough of those. And also the filmmaker is from Ohio, which we love. Jordan Downey, I think he's from Newark, Ohio. And the other thing that I think is fascinating that he made this movie, I think you can tell a couple of times in The Monsters, maybe could give you a glimpse into his earlier, most well-known work, Thanksgiving.
Right.
The very Trauma-esque Thanksgiving. You go, wait, what? Then he went on to make this almost silent film. And there's only one performance, really. I was going to say the lead performance. The performance in the film, Christopher Reich, was just spectacular. I mean, I don't know, having never acted ever in my entire life, I can't imagine what it would be like to have to shoulder that responsibility of keeping an audience's interest for 90 minutes when you have maybe 5 lines to deliver. Yeah, I just thought it was very impressive. What did you think, George?
Absolutely. I really like The Headhunter. What can I say? I mean, first of all, Jordan Downey, I really applaud it. What I was talking earlier about atmosphere, he absolutely accomplishes it. I think it's good for everybody to know that first of all, I love that genre. I'm a sucker for like horror fantasy, and I love all, that sort of grounded medieval sort of fantasy that he does, and it's that sort of minimalistic one-man show that goes for it. And as far as you know, that I think some people might get disappointed by the fact that you don't really see the monster fights that happen throughout the most of the film, but you have to know that that's not what it's trying to do. And right. I think quite early you might see that that's not what it's trying to do. And I thought it was the way that it didn't show, it was quite clever. It wasn't like in the first Godzilla that you're just about to see the fight and it closes the doors on you, and you're like, okay, well, that was cheap.
Yeah.
This film's literally cheap, but it's not cheap in terms of what it's trying to do, which right. I thought it was, a great way, because it's all about the character. It's all about like what he does. And he's not necessarily like, you don't learn too much about him. He's not necessarily like a super deep character in terms of you don't know what he's going through. It's a simple task that he needs to accomplish, but it really puts you in his shoes. It's so easy for you to imagine you doing what he's doing. And I love what you mentioned, Hope, about like how you need to pay attention, because there was just a few little storytelling elements in a very kind of like sparse story that were doing the Chekhov's gun so efficiently that you just might pay attention to just a little detail that in any other movie will be a cutaway, a little droplet or a little spider that's dead, right, or something creaking, and all of this comes back for a payoff. And I think it's a very smart film, and I was surprised to see that. Nothing against those type of movies, but when I saw like Jordan Downey's like previous ones, I'm like, oh really, like something that's called what was it?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't expecting that. Like I put it was something that to me it was reaching quite higher in terms of filmmaking. It's great.
And it's great that maybe betraying his Ohio roots, he apparently got all the props, or a lot of the props, from a Spirit Halloween store on the day after Halloween, so they were cheaper.
Good call.
And then,
Oh my god! And just to say, in terms of props and art direction, so much care went into all these monsters,
Yeah.
and whoever was the artist and the armor, all of these things looked badass. I thought I just came out of Skyrim or something. It was it was beautiful.
Yeah, very true. The Headhunter, number 2 on our list of Dark Ages horror, taking us up to the top, and this is one from also 2017. This one discusses paranoia and superstition in 15th century Europe. Man, we loved this movie, Hagazusa. I think you saw this before I did, right? And then when I finally got to see it, it just mesmerized me. It really did. What a atmospheric movie. And then it drawing you into the statement on, sort of like, it reminded me of The Witch, which is statement on superstition and misogyny and the basically fear of women and what this woman goes through and then what it leads to at the end, which I thought was beautiful, beautifully realized toward the end. I absolutely loved this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was, it's just hypnotic. It's like a poem. That's what I felt like the whole time that I was watching a poem. And it's the filmmaker, Lucas Fiegelfeld. I think that's right. Pronunciation.
I think you're pretty close.
That's his first film. That's crazy to me. That's insane to me. The command that he has of just the cinematic elements in this movie, I think that it's just absolutely stunning. George, early you said that you're still wrapping your head around it. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Well, I think it's one thing that I will agree with is that he comes with like extreme maturity at it. Like I definitely also cannot believe that this is his first film.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Hex and I'm like, yeah, that's my first movie. Yeah. But with this one, I think if you're going with an experience that you're watching more of a Lars von Trier film rather than an Army of Darkness, I think you'll be closer to the experience that you want to be getting out of it. I think. And that's the way how I feel about him. That like I watch a film and I go like I don't know how to feel about this, and then 2 weeks later is one of my favorites ever.
Yeah.
And I think this is closer to that sort of experience. I mean, there's definitely like little moments like in Hex, for example, that I've been inspired by that sort of art house filmmaking, and tried to push it a little bit, but maybe I didn't have enough balls to go as far as Hagazusa did. But oh boy, like for what it's trying to do, it does accomplish it. If you know you're going in as you said, as an experience, that you're going to get yourself submerged into a feeling and maybe take some mushrooms along the way. I think you have the most out of it. If you're waiting for like quite a complex story, I think it's not for that time. But if you really want to submerge yourself into a very dreary in the best way sort of experience and really feel what the character's going through and kind of the nastiness of horror in a very creepy and natural way. It's very effective.
Yeah, and definitely one that will, like you alluded to, have you thinking about it and coming back to it days later. It just kind of stays with you.
I think it's uncommon to see a film so uncommon. You just don't see film. It doesn't follow any of the structural sort of formatting that you're used to. It doesn't follow the narrative path, certainly not the one that you might be expecting to see. And it's interesting though, in the opening act when Albrin's little, the film just breaks your heart as you see what the world does to her once she's an adult, because as a little girl, she's very strong and spunky, and you're like, she's going to be fine. No, she's not.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is so.
It's there's some points that reminds me I said Von Trier, but there's like moments of Antichrist that really kind of I felt that sort of like birth and death cycle. There's a lot there to talk about. So Freud will have a field day.
Yeah, Antichrist is one of our favorites. We go back to that one a lot, and I'd not thought of it before, but I agree with you that there's something very Von Trier, I think, about a lot of the way this film is set up. Maybe a little bit Lynch too, not as self-reflectively quirky.
Weird, not as quirky is the right word, yeah.
No. There's another film from, I think, 2017 called November that I kind of wanted to put on this list somewhere, and it is probably not fair to really compare it to Hagazusa, but it's a very magical feeling. It creates a very magical feeling, and it's got a lot of the similar themes a little bit, except maybe it's a bit more upbeat. but it does have that kind of feeling of cinematic poetry about it. And it's another really, and I don't think anybody in the world saw it. So it's a really, and Dieter Laser is in it.
Oh.
And he kind of wears an Elvis suit, sort of. Anyway, off topic.
I'm in.
But it's worth checking out. People should find it.
Dieter Laser from the Human Centipede.
Yes.
That crazy guy. So Hagazu's at number 1 on our Dark Ages horror list. That one from 2017. Seek it out. And definitely seek out The Droving, the latest film from our special guest, writer-director George Popov. So do you have your next project lined up yet? What are you working on? What are you looking at?
There's a few, more or less, completed. But there's one that me and Jonathan have kind of like feel really, really good about. That's, probably will be our next, which is kind of our darker, more realistic rendition on the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. So yeah, we want to take it back to its dark, more effed up roots, where it came from. But I have a huge reverence also for just like the Disney movies. So like if you enjoy this as a kid, but now you enjoy stuff like Game of Thrones, I think this one's for you. So we'll try to again and incorporate characters that are complex and take them on their journeys and see. And it's something in between of a dark fantasy meets a little bit of a, I don't know, Tennessee Williams in a castle, where you have our two characters shouting at each other forever.
I'm in.
So yeah.
You know what else I'm hearing in that description? I'm hearing more animal masks.
You're hoping.
Quite possibly.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, we cannot thank you enough. This was a blast, not only for coming on and giving us some insight into your work, but commenting on all these other movies. That we can't thank you enough. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. I can't thank you enough. As I said, I don't usually get to do too many podcasts that I'm not just like rambling on about my own stuff. It's great to come in as a fan as well and just talk about a lot of movies that are inspiring to me. And congratulations to all these filmmakers. Some of them don't need them, obviously. Some of them are quite established, but everybody else, great stuff. And we'll try to fight the good fight for good genre stuff.
Fantastic. Well, we already said that cinematography won our poll, right? So that's going to be our next podcast subject.
It is. Wednesday, that's going to be June 17th, we are going to do our Fright Club live. We're still not back in the theater, but we are going to do it, a live event. You can find it on Vimeo and also on Gateway Film Center's Facebook page. They're going to simulcast it.
Yeah, we've got the event, and you can find that link if you want to do Vimeo or just follow along. It's the Gateway Film Center's Facebook page, not ours, although, like Hope said, you can find the event there. So it should be fun, as we're going to talk about the best cinematography in horror. And man, there's a lot to chew on.
There really is.
There is a lot. So we're looking forward to not only talking about our picks, but the beautiful thing about it is when you join in, you can join the conversation with some great comments.
Right.
So we're looking forward to that as well. Some fantastic cinematography and horror that is coming up on Wednesday. So we look forward to that. Look forward to hearing from you. In the meantime, let us know what you thought about this list. Anything we missed. Anything we should know about? Always fun to keep the conversation going. You can find us on Twitter. We're at Fright Club Pod. Also on Facebook and Instagram, it is Mad Wolf Columbus, and the main website is madwolf.com. George, where can we find you on social media and websites and everything?
The best one will be if you go on Twitter, you can find at Rubicon Films UK. Also, our website is rubiconfilms.co.uk. You can find everything there. You can find us also on Instagram. At Rubicon_films_UK. I'm also somewhere there as well on Twitter and Instagram at the George Popov. So yeah, we post like daily stuff and everyone. So if you want to come in and see stuff about Hex and the Droving and maybe other places where I've said things that are maybe not incredibly interesting, please follow. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for hanging out in the Dark Ages with us. Keep in touch if you can. Until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friend.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're the best.
That was
Thank
so
you.
fun. That was great.
Yay.
Yeah.